Hello, in this video we will learn how to create a time series chart with MudBlazor in Blazor.NET 10. If you want to learn about other charts, watch the previous videos on this series with line charts, bar charts, pie charts, all kinds of different options. This one is perhaps a bit more complicated one, but the idea is still the same. We need to set up the data in a certain way, and then we need to do some options in the chart. This can be used as in this example to represent perhaps stock prices or something time related, as that is kind of the point. But also you get the ability to change the type of representation of certain piece of data. So here you have area, the other ones are lines, so you can make those adjustments based on your needs. To get started, let's look at this example. We have one Mud series chart. The main thing is setting up the data. Since it is quite complicated, there is already some data set up, but essentially, just to get the data going into the chart, we need to provide a list of series. So chart series that needs to be filled. That is the main thing. Other things, of course, are the layouts, and you need to do the 100% width, and you need to put it in a nice container just so it fits. So we try to do that and set some kind of a height depending on what kind of arrangement you have. But the width and just to have a nice container is quite important, because the chart can get really expanded and won't look very nice and won't be easy to use. Now, we have these series, so let's look at the actual code and the variables for it. We have it here. We have TimeSeriesChartSeries. That's the name of a type that we need to use. And it can get a bit complicated. We do just have some random data here, but essentially you construct time series chart series type, and then you'll need index. So each value will have an index. Of course, this would be dynamically generated, which would perhaps be a bit more tricky, because every one of those need an index, although it is not mandatory, but it will help you with selection. So you can actually select a line, select an area, and then you can provide some more information on that. We are doing that with binding a selection. You'll see that a bit later. But the other thing is the name, so that's going to be for the line or for whatever it is, but it will be with a certain color, which you can override as well. But just like the other types of charts, it can get a bit tricky. It's not as direct. We also have some other options like is visible, so you can make it not visible, or basically hide it, but that would be more of a user kind of a thing. And that's where where the index would come in as well. So you would select it, and then you hide it based on what you select. Kind of a tricky proposition, but essentially, as long as you remember you have those properties, it should be all good. Now, the next one, probably one of the most important parts, was line and area. One thing to note, if you have line below the area, and the area sort of is above the line, you won't be able to actually select the line. It won't be clickable. It will be covered by the area. So something to consider if you want to actually use those areas above lines and actually make them selectable. Can be quite troublesome in that regard. And perhaps in those cases, maybe different types of charts might be better, or perhaps even different libraries at that point if you really need that sort of visualization. And then we have marker tooltip formats, and then subtitle formats. So essentially we just have the value displayed. You could add some additional words next to a value, or maybe provide a little calculation as well, conversion to some different format. All kinds of things you can actually do here. So kind of a useful thing, because any value that you have here, you can play with it in here, and you can display it in different sort of ways. Can be useful for better visualization. And in this case, we have three of these. The main part, of course, is the data. The data is, once again, not a simple array. It's not a number. It's not two lists, perhaps, with dates and numbers. But it is, in fact, another type, which is the data for the time series, and we construct new one, new time value, specifically time value, so time series chart series, then that in the data takes time value. The time value, it works very simple. You have your bottom, your x-axis with your date. It could be days, it could be hours. This is time series, so usually it's going to be hours and minutes. That's kind of the point of it. And then we have the actual value next to each date. Now that we have the data, we can get into some options. And there are a few, and there's not a lot to it really. It's just sort of generic options for the lines, where we have the lines, where we don't have the lines, the stroke width. The most interesting and the most tricky one, just like all the other charts I mentioned previously, you can actually override the default colors. Well, the way it works, you create essentially a list. So you use chart palette, and then you can do a list or an array for the chart palette. So it can get a bit tricky. Let's do it like this. So the point is, you have now blue on index 0, right? It will correspond like that. So the first item in the time series chart series list will correspond to the first color here, the second to the second, and the third to the third. Now, when you're doing this dynamically, it can get a bit tricky, because once you override two of them, the other ones will keep repeating. So this will be, if say we have it like this, this will be the first, this will be the second, and then the third will be the first one, and then the fourth will be the second one. So it can get a bit trickier with that regard. So you might want to consider whether you want to do the sort of generic approach. If you are really saving time, you might want to avoid the colors, although often you need it and it can get a bit tricky. But just remember that you have to override either all of them, or they just keep repeating. So something definitely to consider. But other than that, we have again stroke width, just sort of simple, very simple arrangements. And one of the important things, we have all the formatting, but one of the, again, probably most important things, the selection. We use bind selected index. So we bind the index, and then if you want to have get the actual name of the data or whatever it is you're presenting there, you can actually get the name. So that's going to be the name of the whole line. If you have a line in this in the series data, or whatever it might be, it will be the whole name like that. You can actually get values and all the other things. So you can go from data, and you can get the whole data. So maybe you want to get a specific period that you have, you can do that as well. But again, you'll need to kind of search for it. But one thing to consider, if you have that area above a line, it won't be clickable, so it won't be selectable, which is, again, a very important thing, and a very important decision needs to be made if you want it all interactive using area type, like we have here, area. If it covers everything, it won't work. So in this case, it would actually cover everything, and only this option, MSFT option, would be selectable. So again, something to remember. And of course, layouts are important as well. And with that said, we will conclude this video.